The method that we are using to analyze and investigate and try to understand consciousness is we have a few topics that we have been covering. Because when you study consciousness, you have to study with the perspective of its functions, its objects, its meaning, its moral nature, etc., etc. So just to review on what kind of, the perspectives that we use to look at each consciousnesses. We have been using 9 topics, 9 perspectives to look at consciousness. So objects, modes of knowledge, how do we know, how do we get to know such a consciousness, the moral nature of the consciousness, the realm of its activity, concomitant mental functions, necessary causes and conditions, and etc., etc. So we have come up to realms of its activities, which we explained already in the last session. So today we should be doing concomitant mental functions. Now, what's the meaning of concomitant mental functions of alaya consciousness? We know that each consciousness, the eye consciousness, ear, etc., etc., come up to the mano and the mana consciousness. Each has its own concomitant mental functions. And altogether, there are 51 concomitant mental functions. What are these concomitant mental functions? Each consciousness, the eyes, the ear, the nose, the tongue consciousness, the body consciousness, the thinking consciousness, the ego consciousness, and now the alaya consciousness. Each consciousness, we call it the king. Each one is the king, and the king must have ministers to help the king to perform. Giving an example, as like in a parliament or in a kingdom, the king is the consciousness, and there are many, many ministers helping the king to perform. And each king, each consciousness has its own number of concomitant mental functions. Now let's take a look at what we've been talking about. The first 5 consciousness, now there are altogether omnipresent functions, particular functions, unwholesome functions, wholesome functions, and the 4 indeterminate functions. So these are the ministers that have been helping each consciousness to perform, to express into action, to express into behavior, to express into thinking, thought. So the first 5 consciousness has 34 concomitant mental functions. Each one of the 5 has 34 concomitant, 34 ministers helping it to perform. Some ministers are good, some ministers are wholesome ministers, some are unwholesome ministers, some are indeterminate, sitting on the bench, the backbencher, sitting on the bench, sitting on the fence, somebody say. Some ministers sitting on the fence, ready to help, or not to help, backbenchers. In the British Parliament, they call it the backbenchers. In here, we call it, you are a fence sitter. You're sitting on the fence. You're not determined. So the first 5 has 34 helping them. The omnipresent functions is, it almost apply to all consciousness, all the 8. Because each consciousness need attention, need contact, need sensation, need perception, and need volition. So for all the 8, the 5 are omnipresent mental functions. They must be present, they must be active in order for each consciousness to be active, What are these? I think if we use the parliamentary procedures, these are like the ministers who are always present, the minister who say, attention, or the minister would say, now that such a convention is, such a congress is convened. There's some, we call it the MC, who announce the beginning of something, they announce the end of something. They draw your attention. There must be someone like that, a minister who is drawing attention, who is telling people, who is disciplinary. If you're not paying attention, then they draw your attention. Contact the minister, say, today's agenda is we're talking about this and that. You have to be very familiar with the agenda. He called your attention to the agenda. Sensation, you may like the agenda, you may not like the agenda. Perception and volition. Then when the discussion is carried on, you got to pay your attention to it, you got to analyze it, you got to apply your wisdom to it, then you make a decision. So these are always present. These ministers always perform the functions of omnipotent mental functions. And now, particular functions. The first 5 have all the 5 particular mental functions. The sixth consciousness, the mano, the thinking consciousness, have all the 5 particular functions. And the 7th have only 1 particular function. Now you've been listening to me talking about a consciousness. Why? Can you give me a reason why the 7th consciousness only have 1 particular function? Think about it. Why? I have already explained it. The thinking consciousness have all the 5 particular functions. All these I have already explained. You need to review your lessons in order to understand. All right. So for the unwholesome functions, which consciousness has the most unwholesome functions? The 6, right? They have 26 unwholesome functions. In other words, they have 26 bad guys. Your thinking consciousness has 26 bad ministers, always helping, advising the king to do unwholesome action, unwholesome speech, unwholesome thinking. Very active, your mano consciousness, your thinking consciousness. That is your mental afflictions, your jealousy, your hatred, your repulsiveness, your depression, all happen in you. You may not know about it. Some people are very repulsive. Everything is negative. This is not good, that is not good, this person is not good, this particular place is not good. They always put a negative feeling because his negative minister is always working. We are affected by unwholesome ministers all the time, and we don't even realize it. The guy who's been gambling all the time, he doesn't really realize that gambling he knows that gambling is not good, but he just can't control the minister. The minister always advised him, gamble, go to the casino, gamble. You get your paycheck on the 26th or on the 1st of the month, the next day you all gamble it away. And then you regret. And then you regret. Why do you regret? Because the indeterminate functions, one of the ministers on regret come up to say, oh, regret. Regret has a minister of regret. That minister of regret is what? It's a backbencher. He could be a good regret. He could be a bad regret. What is a good regret? You gamble and you know you're wrong. I want to change. That's a good regret. But if you have expressed your anger, you say, I don't want to regret. I'm right. I've done this, but I don't want to regret. I don't want to be shameful on this. That's a bad minister. So this minister is sitting on the fence, indeterminate. So, right now, we're talking about the 8th consciousness. The 8th consciousness is a very special consciousness. It has what? It has only 5 concomitant mental functions, only 5 ministers. Why? Why doesn't it have particular mental functions? Because the alaya consciousness only interacts with the present reality. It has no particular mental functions. It has no desire, resolve, mindfulness, concentration, and intelligence. Why? Because your eight consciousness does not create any particular desire. Your eight consciousness only absorbed all the karmic energy, bad or good. It just absorbed it. It does not make any decision to say, I don't want bad inferences, I only want good inferences. Alive consciousness only is a reserve, a repository of all karmic energy, all bija, all seeds. It does not create certain objective in life, certain desire. This alive consciousness would not say, I want to stop all the bad things coming in here. I'm a reservoir, I'm a repository, I'm a warehouse for all the karmic energy that now I desire. Desire means objective. Why you set a desire for something? Now I set an objective that I don't want to receive any bad things, any bad karmic energy. The alive consciousness would not do that. They just received. They don't ask questions. All the bad things you have done, register. All the good things you have done, register. It's only responsible for the registry of everything. It's only responsible, the disk drive is only, the memory only responsible for taking all the information in. The memory will not say, don't key in the P, don't key in the M. You know, they won't make a decision. If I can give you an example of a banking, the teller, when you want, I want to deposit $10,000, the teller will say, no. I don't accept the 10,000. I want to know where your 10,000 comes from. No. You can only put in 5,000. Would the teller tell you? Would the teller differentiate what kind of money you put in? And of course, nowadays the banking policy changes. If you put in 100,000 one day, they may question you. Or if you want to withdraw $100,000 per day, they may question you. But it is just because some corruption goes on nationally that they want to introduce that procedure. But usually, the teller would not differentiate how much money you put in. So there's no desire. The teller has no desire to stop you. How about resolved? Now, the alive consciousness does not create particular desire, as it is a receptacle to all seeds. It does not make resolution, as it does not have any particular determination. It does not make any decision. The teller does not make any decision for you. Would the teller make decision for you and say, if I want to draw $10,000 teller, Mrs. Teller, I want to draw $10,000. The teller would not say, what do you use the $10,000 for? Don't draw too much money, cash, because it's dangerous for you. Would the teller tell you that? Some may, but you have the right to draw anything. So that the teller would not make a decision for you. So the teller has no concentration because it does not create mindfulness for any particular phenomena. It does not concentrate on any particular deed. The teller would not say, today you put in $1,000 and he do it nicely for you, and the other day he just ignore you and do a lousy job for you. It would be the same, putting in money. And the alive consciousness does not cultivate intelligence. It has no particular discernment. The alive consciousness only is a receptacle for all your karma, all your karmic energy. Alaya is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. It just takes the function of storage. So there's no wholesome and unwholesome. It has no indeterminate functions too. Because the alive consciousness would not regret. The alive consciousness would not be drowsy. Should the teller be drowsy? If you put in I want to put in $1,000. No, I'm sleepy. Don't come to me. Go to the next lady. Would he do that? He has to take in. There's no drowsiness. Investigation, the teller will not investigate how you get the money, would he? Would she? Scrutiny. The teller would not say, hey, why do you are drawing 10,000? Let me scrutinize whether you should do it or not. You've been a spendthrift. Yesterday you draw 5,000, today you draw 1,000. No, don't do that. Would the teller tell you that? So the teller would not. So the alaya consciousness, the eighth consciousness, only has 5 concomitant mental functions. So far, we're okay, right? You understand what I'm talking about? If you don't understand, raise your hands. You know, right? So what do we learn from this? After I've been talking about the concomitant mental functions of the alaya consciousness only contain 5. Now, what lesson to learn from this? Just talking about it and listening about it without assimilation, without thinking about it, digesting it, will not do you any good. You must determine that you know that the alaya consciousness just receive all the good and bad. And it's the 7 consciousness that lead us into trouble. It's the mano consciousness that lead us into trouble. So we only should feed in good information. So we have to watch the 6 and the 7 consciousness. My plan in talking about consciousness, I've been doing this for 2 years already, off and on. And at the most 2 more sessions, I say we stopped. And then we go on to something really interesting. Something about chanting of Amitabha. Something about how do we... this is a world that in our present lifetime, to get enlightenment, to be away from reincarnation is almost close to impossibility. Because we've been influenced too much by our own karma. So what's the best way to get out from all this first? To get away from it, what's the best way to get away from the prison of life first? So that we can be free and follow some good teacher, enlightened teacher, so that we can be enlightened. This is all this I'm going to talk about after I finish consciousness. I want to call it an end. Now I've come to the 8th consciousness already, so this could be the second last session that I'll be talking on alaya consciousness. At the most, another 1 session, then I'll go on to something really different, because I've been watching on YouTube and I've been watching on our own website. I receive a lot of comments about chanting therapy. Why do we chant? About how chanting and meditation are related to each other. So this is, alaya consciousness teaches us how to understand how we think. Why do we have mental afflictions? How do we transform tainted consciousness into pure wisdom? This is exactly what we're talking about. This is very psychological. So I wanted to have another 2 sessions, and I call it quit on this topic. Now, our next agenda is what are the causes and conditions on which the 8th consciousness depend on? Because for something to happen, there must be causes, there must be conditions for something to happen. And our eyes consciousness dependent on the organ. If we don't have the organ, the eye consciousness will not exist. The 7 consciousness, the ego consciousness, depend partially on the alaya consciousness reserve of the karma, of the bija, of the seeds, and partially on all the 6 and the first foregoing consciousness to exist. So there must be some causes and reasons and conditions for the creation and for the happening of each consciousness. Then how about for the eight consciousness? How do we get to know all these causes and conditions? We say the alive consciousness. The alive consciousness internally, all the karmic energy creates seeds or latent karmic energy. And at the same time, it creates our body, transform our bija, our latent karmic energy, into a revelation of speech and behavior on one hand, into a formation of our karmic body. How do we get this body? This body is because of our higher consciousness ripen in our karmic energy of reincarnation and reincarnate into what our body is today. Internally, individually. Internally means individually. How about externally? Externally, all our common karmic energy created the whole world. Externally means commonly created the world, because the world is created by what? Not by God. Not by God. By our common karmic energy. How is this hall created by us? This hall, meditation hall, was created because we have the common cause of wanting to build a hall. And there are people who are pioneers. There are people who was responsible for solicitation of donation. There are people who was responsible for the design. There are people who actually carry out the construction. All these karmic energy created the hall together, not by God. But you have that God power in you to create all this hall. And sometimes you call this wonderful power a God power. But that God is in you. You have that power. God is not an idol. God is not a person. It is the common karmic energy, accumulation of energy that makes this hall come true. Next one, alaya consciousness. Look at it from another perspective. Alaya consciousness holds on to something. We individually attaches, clings. We'll never let go of it. We grasp it, we'll never let go. This guy is bad, it's always bad. This place is bad, it's always bad. You hold on to it, you never let it go. You hold on your internal commentator. Your internal commentator is so obstinate that you don't want to change. You hate your dad so much that even though your dad say, I'm sorry that maybe I mistreated you when you were young, but I regret, I want to make up for it. You say, no, I hate you, Dad, I hate you. And you always got that hatred in your mind. You never have that feeling of forgiveness. Then you can never get enlightened. So alaya consciousness holds on to something, you never let it go. You hold on to your own produced bija, your latent energy. And you also hold on to your own body as an ego, as a self. Alaya consciousness holds on to its own produced bija, its own produced body, the self. And then the alaya consciousness lives in a situation that is commonly created by common karma. Common karma has individual karma in it. Why does common karma has individual karma in it? Say, for example, if all of a sudden the country is affected by epidemic disease, something that is terrible, a lot of people die, but some people still exist. This group of people who are doomed to die is living in the karma of dying. But individually, there are people who survive in a tsunami. Why? In a tsunami, not everybody die. They suffer from the common karmic energy, the bija of encountering a tsunami. But some die, some survive. Because in the common karma, there's individual karma. Why do we have to practice Buddhism. Because we are living in the common karma. But in the common karma, it said that you are doomed to suffer from a common karma of tsunami. But 10 years ago, I started to be interested in practice meditation. Then I slowly changed my individual karma. 10 years ago, the karma in me was doomed to be wiped out in a tsunami. But 10 years ago, all of a sudden, I turned to the enlightenment path. I start to purify my karma. I chant every day. I practice good deeds every day. I do meditation every day. I've been very compassionate every day. I've been changing myself every day. That I've been purifying my karma. Then my individual karma does not get dissolved into the common karma. I should have been dead, but then I didn't die. I survived it because I've been changing myself. But some would never get changed. They don't want to change. Nobody wants to, I don't want to change. So it's good to change, you know. It's good to improve. It's good to listen to advice. Otherwise you're doomed. You're doomed in the reincarnation. But first of all, you have to know what is wrong and what is right. So you have to know the righteous eightfold path. Right speech, right action, right behavior. What is right behavior? What is right thinking? You always think that your sixth consciousness is right. You always think that your mano, your individual ego is right. That's what you've been thinking. But can you back up and say, hey, maybe I should watch myself. Do I need to change? So, the light consciousness lives in a commonly created world. We have a worker in here. I didn't mention, I don't want to mention his name. When he first started and working here, he was so much secluded. He didn't even want to smile. A very young guy. He didn't want to smile. He was living in a world that he didn't even say good morning. He just fenced him off from people. And we have changed him. He started to give smile. He started to be more compassionate to others. He started to change. When he was given a job, for example, in painting, he thought this painting job should not be given to me. This is a boring job. Why did that guy do something that I like and you give me this job? He always put negative feelings on every job given to him. Then I explained to him, look, this is a painting job. It is a creation. Try to patch it up in such a smooth surface that you would do a good creation for yourself. You add hilarious feeling, creative feeling to the job. You don't look at the job as a boring job. The job is boring, but your mind is not boring. A boring job with a hilarious mind would make that job more youthful, more hilarious. It's all in your mind, not in your externalities. It's not because of the surrounding that forces you to be bad. It's not people forcing you. It's not the surrounding that make you feel sad. Your heart is sad. It's not the surrounding that has problem. Your mind has a problem. Don't blame externalities. So a light consciousness lives in a commonly created world. So that's the causes and conditions. And next, the functions of the light consciousness. It has the ability to store. It is a repository of all karmic seeds of the seven consciousnesses. Ability to store, and it has all this bija in store. It has infinite power and unlimited magnitude for all this bija, for all these seeds. Unwholesome seeds, wholesome seeds, and neutral seeds. It has the ability, infinite ability, as infinite memory. 3, repository for the individual self. From this repository arise all of our impressioned experiences of ego and their respective functions in the external world. Each individual has his own or her own storehouse, warehouse, storing and deploying karmic energy of which he or she remains largely unaware. This function produced from moment to moment and from life to life. Should we blame the alive consciousness for not making a decision to be good? Its function is not to judge. The alive consciousness is there ready for you to change it. It's ready for you to change its repository. You can change its reserve from bad to good. Don't blame it. You can change it. So the functions of alive consciousness is like that. It is neutral. It has all the ability. And it's up to you to change it, not up to the alive consciousness. In the next session, I will be talking about spiritual transformation towards enlightenment, and how leading sentient being, how when you transform your tainted consciousness into enlightenment, how do you render your compassion, render your help to transform others? I only have 2 perspectives to go, so probably I finish the next session.